Everyone, hello. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me in the back? Perfect. Okay. Thanks a lot for all being here today. We're very happy to see you here today. My name is Kian. I'm a member of the board of directors of the Persian Student Association at Stanford, also known as the PSA. The PSA constantly tries to organize some activities for the Iranian students on campus and beyond with alumni. We are very, very fortunate to have you here. We organize sometimes it can be poetry nights. Sometimes we organize networking events, meetups. Sometimes Persian parties. And I see good dancers around here. However, we really wanted to have a very special event one time in the year. And our goal was to have an event where everyone could attend, both students, alumni, and professionals of the Valley. And on the other hand, have an event where we could get an insight from an expert of the Valley. Someone who was here, someone who is known for that. And this goal, to organize this event, was highly aligned with the goal of the ISAA, the Iranian Stanford Alumni Association. And the ISAA is encouraging the interaction between many generations of alumni from Stanford, and trying to encourage this interaction and keep the community working together. We're very fortunate, the PSA and the ISAA, to have today with us Omid Kordestani. Omid Kordestani started his career about 30 years ago in the Valley, first as a product marketing manager at HP, before having many experiences in different startups. You may have heard of a gaming company, interactive gaming company called 3DO, or of an early smartphone innovator called Geo Corporation. After these steps, Omid decided to join Netscape in 1995, as you know, a pioneer in the internet industry. He ended up eventually leading the business and the sales development as a vice president of Netscape. 4 years after that, and you may know the story, he decided in 1999 to join Google as employee number 11. He is famous for being the business founder, as we say, of Google, leading Google from the first set of employees and the first dollars in revenue to more than 12,000 employees and more than $20 billion in revenues. He has spent 10 years holding executive positions in Google, and has pursued his passion in science, in education, in education, science, and medicine as well, as an advisor and an investor in many startups. Today, Omid is the executive chairman of Twitter, and he has kindly accepted to share his vision of the future, his experience in the Valley with us, in this fireside chat talk that will be moderated by my dear friend Reza, and which is sponsored by the Graduate Business School Career Management Center and the Iranian Studies from the Hamid and Christina Moaddam program. Thank you, and welcome, Omid Kordestani.
So first of all, I want to thank the PSA, the Persian Student Association, and the Alumni Association for inviting me. Very kind of you. And for all of you who decided to take time from this sunny afternoon in California, which has been rare recently, to be here to listen to this. And I hope I can share some interesting thoughts with you. But first and foremost, I also want to really thank my dear friends who are here. My wife is here also. But Mr. Moaddam, Mr. Milani, who are a big part of the Stanford community, and Saeed Amid Huzur, who is a big dear friend and an entrepreneur in the Valley who has inspired me along the way. But also I have to point out something. You know, we all in our older age now, we have picked up all kinds of sports, golf and tennis, and we're actually very competitive with each other. So the first complaint I hear when I come in, because we're very, always betting money against each other and in the sports, Saeed is very upset that you guys used a very young picture of me. So, so you can't give any edge to me, especially when it comes to looks or sports. So, sorry, Saeed. So, but. In any case, one of the things that we talked about was I love to do a fireside chat format so that we can make this interactive, and I'm a pretty open person and would love to touch on any topics of interest by the tremendous IQ represented in this room by these wonderful Persian students, but also from the audience. So I'm happy to touch on any topics and cover any ground while we have this time together today. So thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you everyone for being here, and thank you Omid for being here on this sunny afternoon. I know from your busy schedule, we appreciate it a lot.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and people love you a lot, and they all have come to use your expertise and wisdom as we will chat about. So how's it going? How does it feel to be back at Stanford?
It's so wonderful to be back. First, jealous of all these wonderful facilities you have, and the business school, for example, where I went to, which is not as a serious degree as the PhD in electrical engineering, but back then it was this building that I was surprised it survived the earthquake of '89 when I was here, and now the facility looks like. Just a place you want to actually live in, which I know you guys spend a lot of time in these buildings and student centers studying hard. But it's wonderful to be here and also to be able to share any lessons in life or lessons in career that I've had that I could hopefully inspire in any of you to do great things in life and in your career. So.
Sure, yeah, and I'm sure when some of the students from this room will be back here 10 years from now,
absolutely.
20 years from now as distinguished speakers, they're going to have the same experience.
Absolutely.
And you went to the GSP here,
yes.
Right? I'm going to apologize to any GSP students who are here, which I know a few, but GSP students don't often hang out after the GSP. So have you been to these buildings and these areas before?
Yeah, first of all, when I got into the GSP, I was so, let me actually step back. When I came here from Iran, I had this classic story of an immigrant, which was, I was influenced by media, American media in Iran. I went to a Catholic Italian school called Andishe Don Bosco in Iran. And unfortunately, I lost my father to cancer when I was about 12. And back then, a lot of Iranian students were basically middle class and up, which I was smack middle class. My father was an engineer and my mother was a nurse. They would try to send their children abroad for studies because you would have more choices of majors. In Iran, you had the national exam and your name would show up in a newspaper, and I would be having to compete with someone like you and to get into electrical engineering, and I would clearly not make it. So you just would go. You would just go abroad so that you have a chance of getting into a degree that you like. But anyway, make a long story short, my vision of America was influenced by this show called The Jeffersons, which was this African-American family who was living in Manhattan. And the theme song for that TV series was, one of the top songs was Moving On Up, which was all very serendipitous. And so I imagined I'm coming to this place that looks like Manhattan, and I arrived in the middle of San Jose, California, which as much as I love as my second city, adopted city, it doesn't look like Manhattan. And especially compared to Tehran, which even back then was such a bustling, metropolis. So, and to make a long story short, when I arrived here, not only did I imagine all of America looks like Manhattan, I also imagined. When you lose your father also, even though I had a very strong woman, my mom in my life, you kind of lose your bearing, this light in your life that gives you advice. And so my advice was based on whatever I could glom on, friends and colleagues and You should see how many times I've gone to Hamid's office to get his advice in life and career changes and so forth. So that was just the mode I was in, and I still am in. And anyway, make a long story short, I went to San Jose State University to study double D engineering, assuming all universities in America are the same. They're all great places, and I got a fantastic education there. But then I realized, wow, there is Ivy League schools, there is UC schools, there is like a school like Stanford, and later in life it was a dream for me to then make it to.
Did you like electrical engineering?
I loved electrical engineering, and I was very lucky in my life because even though I was a good engineer, I probably would have not been a great engineer. And I got amazing offers to these great companies that you may not know the names now. They're all these microwave technology companies like Wiltron and Avantech, I think one of them was called. And this recruiter from Hewlett-Packard changed the direction of my career. He basically said, Omid, your personality is not an engineer. You're like an extrovert, and you should consider a product management degree. And that led to my career change to HP. And that also led to me saying I need a proper high-end business education, and that's what made me apply to Stanford and put all my energy into getting to this school.
So you worked at HP for 4 years, and then went to Stanford for an MBA degree for 2 years,
degree, yeah.
And then went to the real world again.
So back to your original question, people that get into the business school, I think with all due respect to all our friends, you think you're just like now ready to be the CEO of the Fortune company. You made that cut, that small percentage of the population that gets into this school and then to the business school. And
was this what you wanted?
And what I really wanted was a reset or confidence in my studies, because you study engineering, and as you all know, and today's world, by the way, is different. Can you believe it? I went to business school when there was no internet. So
there was no Google.
Yeah, there was no Google. And so today's world is so different because I think the engineering students have not only an amazing education in their core studies, but they have access to this wonderful, vast knowledge of the world, like everybody does now, the way internet has democratized information. So I think it's a very different world today. But back then, I had to come here, I have to spend time in the libraries, in the case study groups, in the team groups. And that was not only a great education, but also opportunity to network and kind of build your confidence and meet other alumni to be inspired about your career steps. And that's what Stanford was amazing.
Mm-hmm. What did you do after business school?
So I had the same disease. I thought I can be easily a CEO of a company, and I'm going to go pursue a startup. And I joined this company called Go, which was an early smartphone operating system company. And a lot of you in technology know this. History repeats itself, And this idea of smartphones was, back in '91 when I graduated, was beginning, and we were focused on the wrong problem at the time. We were focused on recognizing handwriting, which to this day, we can't do well. Maybe with machine learning, we can do better now. But back then, we had gestures. You had this ability to do a lot of the things the smartphones do today. But we were trying to solve this really tough problem, which was handwriting recognition. And the devices didn't have the right, battery lives and screen technology and all those other issues. So these devices looked like the big iPads of today, with a phone attached to the top. It's just like when you look back at, when you look at it, it's just, this was way too early. Mm-hmm. And but one of the things that if I can share with you as far as one of the best advice I can give you is that the thing that matters is that experience. And that experience, this is a cliche, the Silicon Valley is good for failure because you can take risks. That is absolutely true. This ability to take risks and learn from it and move on is a fundamental part of how the startup life works here in the Valley. But the other important aspect of it is the network you build. Mm-hmm. So in that company, I got exposed to some incredible leaders that became mentors and advisors over my career for me. So the late Bill Campbell was the CEO of that company. The late Mike Homer was a VP of product management there. And all these people, 2 companies later, which was Netscape, became my coaches and mentors and supporters to kind of propel my career, because I had this experience with them where, as amazing as it was and as early as it was a failure. But it's kind of like going through army together or going through a boot camp together. You know, you do your best, and at the end it didn't work out. But these people know this is the kind of person that can, fight with me in the next battle, in the next innovation cycle. So that's what's amazing about these experiences, is not just the risk taking, but also the network you build and the relationships you build.
Yeah, and it's very hard to keep your network after you leave somewhere, and you could do it perfectly.
Yeah, and this area is fantastic for that. And I think people, and this is one of the things that I again also recommend to the engineering students, is that the brilliance and the high IQ and the ability that engineers have to work on problems, obviously that's a tremendous skill. But some of the most successful entrepreneurs, and this is a credit to Larry and Sergey, they surrounded themselves with advisors and people from the early days that helped them at every step of the way. So I'll give you an example. When I got this call to go meet them, and as a separate story, I can answer your questions about Google later. But they did a reference check on me, like up and down. So they had Stanford computer science advisors of them call me up, meet me for coffee, and to try to evaluate, is this guy a real serious technologist or just a kind of a random business leader that has successfully navigated his career. They wanted the real technologist. They didn't want just a business leader. But incredible people that were part of their network, did these reference checks, and that network and those relationships is what helps you, because they didn't necessarily even care to interview me. They wanted to know who I worked for, and they would call those people and confirm that, is this guy real or not?
So that's how they made sure they wanted to work with you. But at the time, you were a very successful VP at Netscape, which just got acquired by AOL. And you did have a lot of different opportunities. But you meet with these 2 people, Larry and Sergey, and they somehow convince you to leave every opportunity behind and say no to everything and join them. What did they have? What was it about them that you liked?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I had 2 companies that had failed before Netscape. So one was Go, and the other one was 3DO, this interactive gaming company. And then after that, it was Netscape, which was very successful. But then it reached this point where I was living this fancy corporate life. I had access to corporate jets and large organization I was running and a big title. But I just knew that as part of AOL, this company won't be necessarily as innovative and as hard charging. With all the respect to AOL, I just felt like AOL is a media company over time, and it's going to be a different kind of company than a technology company. And back then, some of the leaders that I met also at AOL, they were just very different kind of culture than Silicon Valley. I never forget one of the guys. I never get sick, luckily, but somehow I got called to a meeting to discuss the acquisition, and I had this weird kind of an ear infection where I was kind of wobbly, and I said, this is the worst way to meet the future bosses and the people that are part of this decision making. So I missed that meeting, and instead of them saying, okay, this poor guy was sick, they took that as a signal that I'm not interested in this kind of being part of this company. So the next day that I was back at work, this limo arrives. And this is so on Silicon Valley. I mean, today we have Uber. We were used to it. But back then, this black limo pulls up. And the head of the business comes and says, Omid, let's go to breakfast. And it was 10:30. And it was I already had breakfast. But we go sit in the back of the limo. And he says to me, Omid, there are acquisitions and there are mergers. And this was an acquisition. And I said, am I going to end up in the trunk of this limo now? And it was like the East Coast Mafia coming to the Valley. And so what happened then is I I just knew culturally I'm not going to fit there.
Okay.
And what happened at that moment was I literally got a call from Google. No, sorry, not a call. I got this report. Google, AOL didn't have its own search engine. Netscape didn't have its own search engine. We were actually selling our traffic to other search engines. So the little button that was on the Netscape browser, which was the world search traffic, was coming to us. It's another whole story about why Netscape kind of lost its way early on. But that traffic was actually being sold to other search providers like Yahoo and InfoSeek and a lot of other search engine companies back at the time. But to answer your question, I was just yearning for that moment of simplicity and risk-taking again. So I was, getting to an age where, I already had 2 young kids at the time, and I knew that I have one more high-risk company in me. Mm-hmm. And when Larry and Sergey called and I met them, I had this whole background of AOL in the back of my head. I had this understanding of search technology and how it really works and how lucrative it can be. And then I met Larry and Sergey, and I later on shared this story with a lot of my employees at Google, is that in their eyes, I just saw this burning innovation and mindset that it didn't matter what we were building. So what I kind of decided to do was just to join that team for the journey. And I decided that these guys are such innovators and such brilliant people that one day, who knows, we may build a mattress, but it would be the most amazing mattress, and it would probably fly and do all kinds of things. And so for me, it was not important what we were building. It was that I'm going to be part of this team that is going to be so innovative and interesting to be next to. And this is one of the other pieces of advice I have for people is you have to in your career make yourself uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. If you get too comfortable, you just miss those discontinuities and miss those opportunities to join the next great venture.
When you joined to Google, what were you thinking about the future of the company? Like, did you have any simpler exit strategies in mind, or did you think that Google would be this big as it is today?
No, nobody did. Even Larry and Sergey didn't. I think they knew they're going to, again, build an amazing technology, but nobody knew it's going to be this huge business and this, because it's not just about the brilliance, and this is what you'll see as you develop your careers. A lot of other things have to go right. I talked about the timing of innovation. So it happened that search engines, there were a lot of search engines at the time, but they were doing a terrible job. They were not keeping up with the amount of growth that was happening on the web. Their indexes of information were small. The algorithms weren't smart enough. So all you were getting was poor information. You were getting lots of ads that were untargeted. So it was this amazing opening, this is a huge use case that people are doing. People are searching for information, but then the products weren't great. So here's a company that is so pure and has such focus on great technology and a great product experience. The other thing that has to go right is the timing has to be right. So we were lucky when the internet bubble burst, because there were all these PhDs working at pets.com and all these other places, and they were bored to death. When those companies went away, we were able to attract this incredible talent to the company. And a lot of those PhDs are there now today. They're fellows, they're part of the AI teams. They're just an incredible talent base that Google has. And so it was timing. So your timing had to be good. And you have to be lucky. The fact that I was able to kind of survive those early days and build this relationship with Larry and Sergey, the fact that we did this important deal with Yahoo and AOL that actually helped us propel our business forward. Some of the smart acquisitions we made, some of the talent we acquired. So a lot of things have to go right for these ventures to become successful. It's not just about the technology and the people.
How did it change in the later times? When you joined at Google, there were 10 people and basically no revenue. Yeah. And then when you left, there were, as Ken said, 12,000 employees and $20 billion revenue. What did you do to make sure that you survived this massive growth?
Yeah. The main thing you do is the culture of the company and the culture of the company that keeps that excellence in everything you're doing. Excellence in the way you're working on products and technology, excellence in hiring. I would say probably the most important thing the company has done, and Larry and Sergey wrote this in their founder's letter, is that our employees are everything. And it's true. Without those employees, without that innovation, not only the original success wouldn't have happened, but the follow-on success wouldn't have happened. So there's this famous saying, I don't know who coined it, but I certainly used it in my career, which was A players hire A players, and B players hire C players, and C players hire D players. So at Google, this is pretty much the standard that's kept intact, I believe. I had the pleasure of hiring someone like Sheryl Sandberg to work for me, who's now the COO of Facebook. And not only was that a lucky moment in the company's history, but it was a lucky moment for Sheryl, and she says that, and a lucky moment for me because I had this incredible talent as part of my organization, and we learned from each other, we challenged each other, we built this incredible aspects of the operations of the company together. So to me, that's probably the foundation of success for a lot of these companies, is the ability to keep the standard of hiring that high.
And you joined Twitter a couple of years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about that too? Why did you choose to join Twitter? And we've been hearing some news about Twitter, like they sold Fabric to Google, and they shut down Vine. And there are a lot of changes going on. Can you talk about that too?
Yeah, so Twitter is a couple of things. One, I want to give credit to my wife. I was debating one night about this opportunity to join them. And I asked Giselle, what do you think? Do you really think this service is that unique? And she reminded me that there are a lot of messaging services today, and Twitter is not really a messaging service anymore. It's much more important as a source of what's happening now and understanding of what's going on in the world, and then the ability to have a dialogue around it. But she said, if some of these messaging apps go away, there are all these alternatives I have today. But Twitter is special. If it goes away, something special will be missed. And that's what's really stuck with me, that it's such a unique service. And I always felt like it has this incredible potential that's unfulfilled. And that's one reason I joined. The other reason I joined was the uncomfortable comment I made about making your careers always looking for that moment where you can learn more and challenge yourself more and make those uncomfortable choices. So once again, I was at this position. Larry actually asked me to come out of retirement and go back to Google to help with this transition to Alphabet, the holding company.
That's 2014.
That was 2014. And when I went back to Google to do that, it was this incredible journey working with Larry and the team again to help transition Google into a holding company. And at the end of that process, once we decided Sundar is the best choice for the CEO for the company, and the holding company got formed. Then Larry wanted me to stay on as an advisor again. And I just decided, this is another one of those moments where I'm going to, have this high class problem. I'm going to have this amazing position. I'm going to have this amazing platform. I'm going to get paid really well. But I'm going to be just playing with the dials. There's so many smart people in this company. The CEO is incredible at Google now. And I'm going to just be sitting there as this high-end advisor, and I need something more challenging. So when I met Jack, I just got sold right away. The fact that here's a founder who's back and has another job, by the way, CEO of Square. And he's taking on something really uncomfortable to try to help Twitter achieve its true potential. And if I can be part of that journey, it's just going to be amazing again. And that's why I chose to join, because I think this company is really special, as you see today. The dialogue that's happening, the dangers to our democracy, not just in the US, but across the world, the information flow that's happening, the dialogue that's happening, the supreme leader of Iran making a commentary to the president of the United States, and that dialogue happening on Twitter not only is important, but it's also an incredible source of entertainment these days. So that's what's so special, I think, about that.
That is very true. And in that journey, what steps Twitter has done recently on changing stuff? Jack Dorsey a few days ago published a short remark about how they're focusing on the advertisers, and they want to use the instantaneous feature of Twitter.
Yeah.
So what steps are you guys doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I came to Twitter, and one of the things that was so special is Jack and I had the same mindset, which is here's this incredibly successful company, but yet it's challenged for various reasons. And without going into the history of why it got there, the problem is these technology companies are only successful if the technologists are actually in charge, in my opinion, as a business leader. You cannot have business leaders in charge of technology companies, in my opinion. So what happened is Jack, as a technology founder, being back, you need to have incredible business leadership and capability in the company, but they need to follow the technology and product innovation path, not the other way around. So one of the things that we've done at Twitter is over the last year really spend time to establish that discipline, to raise the voice of the technologists at the company, to have Jack spend a lot of time with the product leadership so that the focus is on rapid product innovation, to continually improve the core service for the existing users, but also to take bets so that we can propel the innovation of the company. And then the same thing now needs to happen on the business side. What happened over the last several years is that Twitter was hot as a property that advertisers just wanted to be associated with, especially brand advertisers that are always after the next hot property. Those kinds of advertising dollars and budgets are very flimsy because they always follow the next hot thing. And what Google did really well and what Facebook did really well and what Twitter is going to do really well next is really focus on a business model that fits its core service, not the other way around again, not go after any advertising model or advertising business. So even though in the short term we had to do a reset basically on the business, which we just did this last week, we are confident in our ability to innovate there. So that's the other thing you have to realize. It's like in Silicon Valley, a company that has hundreds of millions of users and has this kind of awareness where the presidents of our world are having a dialogue and fights and conversations with each other. Every headline you read is like putting this scrutiny on this company that, is it going to survive? Is it going to last this? Is it going to last that? Internally in the company is a very different story. The people are committed. There's this incredible love and energy there. And it's not easy. It's not, and this is what I went for, and this is what I recommend you guys do in your careers, is that when you can afford it and when it's right for you in your career path, and again, you have to consider all the other things, all the other parameters, your family life, your other commitments, but always try to push yourself to take those risks because you learn from them and your career propels because of it.
And since you mentioned technology, I'm curious about what you think about the future of technology. You've been working in the Valley for more than 30 years now. You've seen companies like Go and last generation of desktop PC and then to mobile and now Internet of Things and drones. So what is about the future that interests you? And is there any small companies that you like or personally invest in?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic about the future of technology, and one of the I think one of the best recent talks I learned a lot from was this TED talk I listened to. I forget who was actually speaking. I have this commute to San Francisco now, so I have a lot of time to listen to great content and podcasts. And this speaker was talking about the role of AI today and the impact it's going to have on employment and the worry that the world has about these jobs disappearing. There certainly is going to be a short-term pain in an entire global workforce because these changes are disruptive and is going to be challenging, and all of us need to come together to find solutions to hopefully make these transitions easier. But the example he was using what AI did recently with AlphaGo, which was Google's DeepMind technology beating a world champion in Go, which is one of the most strategic and difficult board games. And then what IBM Blue did similarly in chess. And the talk was about the fact that humans probably won't be able to beat the machine again in the game. But what's happening now is that the team has changed. It's not the human now playing with another player. Is the fact that there's a team of humans and machine now together doing things. And I think that's what's really going to happen with AI and machine learning and all of these technologies, is that the more mundane jobs is going to be taken on by machines. So the radiologists who had to do some of the most basic tasks, those things can be done better with machines now. I mean, one of you guys is studying computer vision, for example, right? So I really want the capability of a doctor plus a machine learning if I have a tumor. You know, I much rather have that than just the trained eyes of a doctor now, because I want all that knowledge and know-how that technology can also supplement that doctor with. So what I'm hopeful about is the way to think about technology and what's going to happen with AI and machine learning is like it's another form of utility. It's going to be like flowing like electricity, and supplementing everything else that we're doing. It's like a utility for human beings, and that's what. In fact, even you can buy it today that way. You can buy access to Google's AI API. I forget exactly what the price is, but it's like some number of cents per 1,000 hits or so. So that's what's really happening with this powerful innovation that's going on now. Will it replace some of these jobs that are getting lost in the center of our country here? And probably not. But I'm much more hopeful of what the future jobs will be, and that the retooling that needs to happen and the education that needs to happen. That's what's exciting.
Thank you. If you don't mind now, like we can switch gears and talk about more personal lessons of your life.
Sure.
I have
As though I haven't been.
We've been talking about technology for the past few minutes. Sure. But I've seen an interesting video of you at University of San Jose State University commencement, which is very interesting. And in that, you talk about 3 aha moments in your life. Do you want to talk about them and tell me if you have any have had any aha moments since?
Yeah, I really look for them. You know, I just feel like life is full of delightful surprises, and that I think the most successful people are the ones who are really in tune with these twists and turns that life brings to them. So again, if I may talk about my own personal experience, you know, when my father died, that was a moment for me that could have made me go become depressed or get into drugs or, you know, give up on life and career. But in reality, what happened was the combination of my mother's leadership, always strong women. I believe in strong women in your life. Surround yourself with them, include them in your teams. Is that that became a leadership palette for me. And some of it was hard because as a 14-year-old, if your mom kind of looks at you as a head of the family now, that's another stress on its own. But that was also an opportunity to kind of jump into a leadership role and decide on where we're going to move to and the next house we may live in and the next career and risks. And I took a lot of risks. And thanks to my mother, she put up with them and supported me. But these moments kind of present themselves, you know, like that lunch meeting I had with Larry and Sergey. It's just this moment that I realized I can be comfortable at AOL, aside from that limo ride, but I can be comfortable there and I can have a cush job and by the way, I even did a spreadsheet. This is like shows you the mistakes you can make in life. I did a spreadsheet, talking about money now for a second, when you asked about did I know how successful Google is going to be. I did a spreadsheet and completely with my technical education, forgetting the law of large numbers, because my stock at Netscape had gone from $15 to $75 after the AOL acquisition. That was like an incredible rise. I said, well, that kind of a rise is impossible to continue, but doubling of the stock every year is possible. Like, I was just like completely forgetting the market cap of AOL and the fact that it's impossible for it to double every year, forgetting the law of large numbers. I assumed that in my spreadsheet and what kind of shares I had at AOL. And then for Google, luckily, I was able to negotiate a nice percentage of the company at the time. I had assumed that we're going to sell Google to some company for a couple $100 million, and my share would be, you know, whatever, $3 million. And I said, well, that kind of looks very similar to my AOL income. And I kind of looked at it and said, well, it's not about the money. Where am I going to have more fun? And I decided to go with Google. So it just shows you, I picked that decision not because I had negotiated a great deal with Google and become a kind of almost like a founder of the company. But the fact that that aha moment for that moment was, I'm going to just learn a lot more. I'm going to have a lot more fun, and I'm at a point in my life where I can take this risk, and I did that. So I would say the same aha moment has happened to me with my conversation with my wife about joining Twitter. Where it would have been much more comfortable staying at Google again and not being beat up in the press every day, or getting nasty tweets about whenever I make a comment about the craziness that's going on with our current president, I get these nasty tweets like, pay more attention to the Twitter stock, or like, go fix the problems with Jack, and like, so I would have been a lot more comfortable staying at Google than what's going on at Twitter now. On the other hand, I'm just loving what I'm doing every day now. I'm learning a lot more. I'm challenged a lot more, and that's, I would say, another recent special moment for me. Yeah.
And speaking of the current president, I want to bring this up that over the past few years, over the past decades, actually, a lot of immigrants came to this country, a lot of smart people. You are one who you helped grow Google, which now hires more than like tens of thousands of employees. Saeed Hamidi, Hamid Moqaddam, and like the list goes on and on and on.
Yes.
Like I don't want to say names here, but many of these people were from those 7 countries that are listed in the executive order. What do you think about the role of immigrants in America's economy, and more specifically high-tech industry?
Absolutely. No, happy to address that. So I'm going to stand up for this because I'm passionate about this issue. Going to get into a fight. Thank you. So first of all, I just want to say I am one of you. I'm an immigrant, and I've been lucky to have the doors of this country be open to me and welcome me. But I want to put it in context. When I came here, I was lucky in one respect because I came totally unrelated to what was going on in Iran. I arrived here because my father had passed away, and it was right before the revolution. But then the revolution happened, the Iran-Iraq war happened, and the hostage crisis happened. So I was a student in high school here during a lot of that. And I faced the same kind of pressures or fears that you may be facing today, those of you who are students today. I was on a student visa. At one point, I think President Reagan put a ban on travel on Iranian students, and you had to go fingerprint yourself. So what I want to say is, I went through all this and survived it. And all of you students who are here, stick to your guns, stick to your focus on your studies, stick to the laws of this country and what makes this country incredible. Not only is this amazing people, even the ones who may be on the other side now supporting the president and some of his policies, I fundamentally believe that American people are incredible people, they're welcoming people, and dialogue and conversation and the laws of this country is what ultimately propels this great nation forward. So I think, I survived that, and I think we're going to survive this in a similar way. And the power of the internet today and information today and tools like Twitter and Facebook and others enables this conversation to be magnified and to be accessible a lot faster. So first and foremost, I think these are experiences that happen in these countries, and it's part of I believe, growth of this country, and this country gets better from it by going through these tough experiences. Because the alternative is worse. If these kind of pressures that this country faced that led to the election of President Trump, if those things would have not come out, if those things would have led to more disruptions in the country, if that led to more alienation, then there will be tanks on the streets, which happens in a lot of other countries. And there will be much worse situations that develop. So don't be scared of some of the rhetoric or some of the back and forth that happens now as we face these challenges in this country. Fundamentally, if you're here legally, if you're here on a student visa and you're a good person and the president has made a move that in my opinion is incorrect and misinformed, there are ways to fight it. There's ways to educate it. Just the way as a student in high school I was able to deal with some of the bullies in the high school and talk to them, we can now do that with the bullies in different positions in government, perhaps, or in the country, and that we can surpass it and we can become great. The other thing I would like to add is that it's a tweet actually I just forwarded by Senator Cory Booker. I don't know where it's from, but it was a picture that he had taken, and it looked like a church maybe or a community center, and basically it said that for those of us who have been lucky, the answer is for us to have a longer table, not a taller fence. And I believe this country actually is very welcoming, and its foundation was that, and its entire history was based on welcoming immigrants and growing from it and becoming better from it. So I think this is just a natural part of what this country has to go through, and I wouldn't be afraid of it. I would just be aware of it. I would be engaged, and that's what's so incredible is that this country actually allows that. My wife went to the Women's March in DC and flew this crazy flight to get here for that, and this is a country that allows that. This is a country that doesn't show up with machine guns and takes people away and puts them away for marching. So that's what you have to compare it to, and I think I'm just very bullish and optimistic on the future of this country.
And you've shown this in action too. Employees of Twitter raised more than $500,000 in donations for ACLU, and Omid Kordestani and Jack Dorsey, Twitter's CEO, personally matched this donation and brought it up to almost $1.6 million. So that's one step. But the other question is that what else we can do as a community together, and what is our roles? The people are sitting here in this room. Someone like me, someone like you. Well, what can each of us do?
I think a couple of things. I mean, one is that fundamentally do everything that you're good at today. You're a great student. Do what you're good. Do that job extremely well, because what you're going to do next, and the companies you're going to help build, or the great success you're going to become, like the wonderful mathematician that just won the Nobel Prize, I believe, in mathematics. What's her name again? Sorry.
Maria Mirzakhani. It's the Fields Medal. It's equivalent to
Fields Medal.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so do what you're good at, and that's what's going to highlight the power and the success of the immigrants. So that's the number one thing. Two, be engaged. This is what's great about this country. The civic engagement is going to it caused this country to become better. I love one of his recent lines. John Lewis, our congressman, one of the incredible leaders of the country, he went to one of the airports as this ban was coming on, and I think was talking to someone about this ban, and they were mistreating some of the people that were entering the country, and he just simply said, well, looks like we're going to have to spend some time here, and we're going to take a seat here. And here's this, I think he's like 70-something years old, and he sits down at the airport, a congressman, and takes the time to do this. So we have to do the same in our community. We have to support NIAC and other organizations that, and in fact, I have a fundraiser tomorrow. We have to support any other organization that is actively engaging and lobbying the Congress, lobbying the various organizations basically that's part of the civil engagement that this country encourages and has. So do what you're best at and become engaged, and that's how this country improves.
This has been amazing, Omid. Thank you very much. We're going to open up to questions, but before that, ladies and gentlemen, Omid Kordestani. Anyone has questions? Someone in the back. Ken, over there.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your talk. I have two questions. A lot of us in Silicon Valley have this idea of Silicon Valley exceptionalism, where we think that no matter what happens with globalization, Silicon Valley will always be the center of what's next in tech innovation. Do you share this belief? That's my first question. Second question is, has anybody from the White House approached Twitter to build an AI bot to make the tweets more presidential?
It's a great business opportunity, I think. But I think on your question about Silicon Valley, I do think we have something really magical here. The fact that students from this great university can literally get on a bike, meet a bunch of angel investors and people that have gone through this journey before and get a check for 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, whatever their idea is worth at the time, or may not be worth at the time. But basically especially in those early stages, people are betting on people. So these investors and angels invest when they see this bright eyes and innovative mind of an entrepreneur. So on a bike ride, you can go do that with a bunch of investors like Larry and Sergey did. Then go over to Page Mill Road and some of the best law firms and incorporate your company and get best advice. And then hopefully find some real estate these days. Said may help with that. But I do think this magic is here because the great universities, the great access to the professional services, the funding, the mentorship, the great kind of appetite for risk is really here. But I wouldn't underestimate what's going on in the rest of the world now. So a lot of countries are now learning this and watch this carefully. Not only do they have a healthy envy for it, but they have the talent base for it that's actually less expensive than the what's going on in this region. I also think that we have the opportunity in this country to deal with the divide. Hopefully, we can invest more in some of these areas and counties and cities that have fallen behind Silicon Valley and the coasts. And that's what I'm hopeful for as well. I remember when I was at Google, Larry went to university in Michigan. And one of the big centers we were going to build, he was adamant that we got to build it there. I know Jack comes from the Midwest as well. And these people are really in tune with not only the value system there that is so strong and so American, but also the opportunities there, that the talent is there and the hunger is there for success. So anyway, make the long story short, I do believe we have something magical here, and I do think the signs of it now working in other regions is happening. And areas like Hamburg and Paris and London, of course, are most famous for it, but I'm also very hopeful that this can happen in Iran. This is one of the most painful things for me, which is I went to as I told you, went to a Catholic Italian school, and these were wonderful Italian fathers that were running this. And every time, as alumni of that school, we meet with these fathers, you should see, I mean, they almost like spank us. They basically are like, if you guys don't go back to that country, who do you think is going to go fix it or help with it? Well, first of all, I think the attitude in Iran is very different, which I think is correct. It's like, who are you guys who have lived most of your life and are practically Americans or foreigners to come tell these wonderful energy and youth in Iran what to do? So I'm completely subscribed to that. I think what I just hope for is that by these sanctions going away, hopefully, and the country opening up so that the rest of the world can see the wonderful culture, the history, and the incredible talent base that's there, it pains me to see that we're not as successful as India or Turkey or some of these other countries. So I hope that kind of innovation from Silicon Valley can take root in Iran as well.
Yeah. So 2 questions. What matters most to you and why? And when it comes time for you to retire, where are you gonna spend your retirement?
I think what matters to me most at the end of the day is my family and my friends. So at the end of the day, when everything else goes away, or everything else goes into perspective, what's most joyful is your friends and family. And so that's where I love to spend most of my time. And I'm very protective of it these days, by the way, because I have the luxury now of picking what I want to do. And again, this friend of mine always tortures me because whenever I slow down, he says, Omid, you need to work harder. You need to do the next thing. And I always caution him that I now want to enjoy my young kids and my older kids who are in college and my family a lot more and the sports that I love. So those are what matters to me a lot. But also, I'm the kind of person I think will be just not satisfied sitting at home or just retiring somewhere. I have to be challenged, and the luxury of being able to be part of this incredible innovative ecosystem of the Valley and the technology field, I think is so special. The impact it's going to have on politics now, the impact it's going to have on medicine, and the future of employment, I think, is profound. And I will always be involved with that. And I hope to support the future entrepreneurs and be coaches and board member or advisor to these companies. And as far as retiring anywhere, honestly, this is something else that we struggle with, Zell and I, because we love this area. And then we spend a year in London, and it's like, oh my God, it's so amazing. We should live in London. And then we go to New York. It's like, oh my God, this is so amazing. We should live in New York. And she's from France, so it's like whenever I go to France, it's like this is the best place on earth, and the culture is so similar to Iran. We have this ongoing joke, all these Persian words that are actually Persian, she claims are French. Like échantillon, sabun, douche. But what I've realized is, really home is where your relationships are. And that's what really matters to me, is that spend time with my closest family and friends, and that you can always travel or visit. And thanks to Airbnb now, you can just really have a choice around the world where you want to spend more extended time. So I think that's how I look at the world now, being a world citizen. Thank you. Let me go this side.
Hi, Omid. I have one question. You mentioned that like tier A company hires tier A people, and like tier B company hires tier C people, and even worse. But what if you start with a tier B company, or what if you start with a small company? I mean, that can be hard to find these kind of tier A people. And what do you have some experience in that? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. But what I was talking about was, it was the same kind of related point. But I was talking about individuals like tier A people, like A caliber employees hire A caliber employees. I tell you, the only way out of it is to try to change the trend. Because if you are worried, and I've had these cases, by the way, in my career, where I always thought I'd get, and maybe it was just a false sense of confidence or just positive outlook on life. I always thought I'd learn more and become better if I hire someone that's better than me. And that always worked for me. And has worked certainly for Google. It doesn't mean they're better at everything than me, but there's something about you rising your career that makes you special. But I always emphasize on doing that, because if you don't do that, you end up with people that become protective of their careers. So if you don't hire an A caliber person, that next manager is more worried about protecting their position, he or she, than really propelling the company and the people that they manage in that group or they work within a project with. So it goes back to that challenge. First of all, that mindset of I want to change this trajectory. I want to change the trajectory of this company, and I want to take a risk on being able to attract the kind of talent that's really going to be better than me and better than what we have here today. And it doesn't take, I don't think it takes much. If you're able to if there's a mission in that company or there's a focus and product that someone cares about, you'll be surprised. You'll be able to attract those people because they come there for the mission, and they come there for the opportunity to work with someone that has that same attitude and that same kind of passion for what you're doing. So I agree with you. It's not easy, and it's hard, especially if you're in an area where there's such competition for that A talent. But sometimes, sometimes you may have to hire in different centers, in different locations. But I don't think companies that fall into this pattern of not hiring top talent can really survive long term. It's just, I don't think they will be able to compete with the best of the best.
Thank you so much for the talk. My question is kind of related to the concept of the mindset. There's a lot of Iranians that have a little bit of anxiety and shyness. I was wondering if you can make a comment about how to overcome that early in your career. And the second question is, what's your ritual of success? What do you do, or what did you do in your 30s that perhaps was a good ritual to have?
Yeah, it's a very good question. You know, I'll give you something very personal on this. So even though I personally always had this very positive outlook on life and just always liked connecting with people, I would say I was also shy early on. And maybe I still am in certain circumstances. I like to, I'm not the kind of person that goes into a party and likes to talk to everyone. My friend Saeed does. But I like to talk maybe to like 5 people and have a smaller conversation. But I would say there were couple of things I learned. One is, and this is very personal now, when I came to Stanford, I thought I'm so amazing. I had this electrical engineering degree. I went to HP and I got into Stanford. I only applied to one business school and I got in, and because I was so focused on Stanford. So I just thought that I'm walking on water, and I almost failed the first two, I forget, it was quarter or semester back then. I underestimated the talent around me. There were people that were Olympians, there were people that were bankers, and this, by the way, I hear happens to a lot of business school students during the first few months, is you show up thinking you're really hot, and then you kind of underestimate your classmates. And I literally was about to fail. And there are a couple of things that happened. One is I had taken a course called Power and Politics, which is a controversial course by Professor Pfeffer here, because it talks about the role of power and politics, and I recommend you guys listen to his lectures and read it, and be careful with it, because sometimes it draws lessons from politics and government and industry. But what it shows you is that the most successful people sometimes get really close to that ethical line. They kind of push that line, and some people are very question that. Why are you teaching us this? Because I don't want to ever kind of get close to that line. And Professor Pfeffer had a beautiful line about it, and he said, I just want you to be aware of what goes around in the world, because I don't want you to end up in a low point in your career and not realize what happened to you. You don't have to necessarily play the game in the worst way, but you should be aware of the role of power and politics. So anyway, long way of saying this. As some of this teachings was going into my head, I realized that, again, maybe it's because of my Iranian background, or maybe it was because of my engineering background. A lot of times I'll be sitting in this class and I knew the answer, or I knew how to contribute, and I wouldn't raise my hand. I just was kind of shy. I wasn't participating. I just wanted to go do my work and turn it in. And I realized, I just need to put myself out there. You just need to put yourself out there and make yourself uncomfortable again. So I started raising my hand. I would, take risks. Put your hand up, and even if you're wrong, it's okay. You get noticed. I was shocked about how that level of participation and that level of putting yourself out there just dramatically changed me. And my grades went up. The same thing happened in my career. I always thought, you do great work, you get promoted, and you propel yourself. But you have to get noticed. And to get noticed, at 3DO, I never forget, we were a company, we had a lot of issues, a lot of challenges, and there was this path I would take that was the closest path to my cubicle. I would take this path and go do this thing. And then suddenly Dr. Pfeffer's lessons came to me, you got to put yourself out there, you got to get noticed. So I started, sounds terrible, but I started taking the path through the executive row to the exit. And then one day, the CEO of the company stopped and said, "Oh, hi Omid, I'm going to Japan, and I know you had worked in Japan before, would you like to come on this trip, because we have to deal with this issue?" And again, that little encounter changed my career there, because it just showed me, again, by putting yourself out there, you open opportunities up for yourself. So again, you don't have to do it fake, you don't have to do it unethically, but you have to push yourself to be noticed, to take paths that are not necessarily the easiest, but take you down different experiences. Let's have a question from a lady.
Hi, Omid. I had just one question, and my question is, how do you introduce Omid Kordestani in just one sentence?
I guess. I'm going to use some of the things that recently I've learned, and especially during this kind of attack on immigrants. So I'll probably think of myself now, introduce myself as, I'm Iranian by birth, American by choice, and I am an ever optimist. Thank you. Maybe someone in the middle there?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have actually a couple of questions for you. First one is basically I want to have your idea or basically your advice for the mainly Iranian or immigrant student basically that come here for education. The first thing that came to their mind is just basically we are at the beginning of education, we are more worried about being settled down than taking risks for doing better. Having a better job. You're thinking about, okay, how I can settle down, how I can make my personal life, fixed. So that's something that somehow I personally believe that kind of holding me to do the better thing, because I'm always worried about what's going to happen. So what's your advice for us? That's my first basically question. And the second one is this, how do you rank your patience when you're starting something? From 1 to 10, and so thanks.
Yeah, sure. So on the question of immigrants first, so focus on getting settled down and surviving. Actually, I totally agree with that. And it's so hard to come to a different country, away from your familiar surroundings, friends, family, and I remember, those early days, I was really kind of in high school, especially with the revolution and the war and the Iranian hostage crisis, I was so kind of serious and inwardly focused. So I think there were a couple of things that were kind of my compass, not just those early days, but kind of to your point about getting settled down. One is just really being passionate about something, and I was truly passionate about my electrical engineering degree. I was really loving every aspect of it and wanting to just learn and become better at it. The second part was, again, surrounding myself with a strong community of friends. And I would say both the Persian community gave me this grounding and this familiarity that was so helpful for me early days. My friends and my relationships. We have this dear friend who said hello to me earlier today. I haven't seen her for a number of years, actually. Thank you for coming. But I never forget, she was this young girl that was a premature baby, and I actually got the pleasure of naming her Nahal. And our dear friend accepted that name, and now she's a successful employee at Intel, and I'm sure a lot of great things ahead of her. But these relationships, these kind of community that was around me was just part of the roots that I established for myself that really helped me. And I would say the third one is, be it a man or a woman, I think a partner in life is critical. And I had incredibly strong women in my life, both in college when I was growing up. I had these I had an amazing American girlfriend who was a huge influence on me to introduce me to this culture and have me not become so insular and enjoy the theater and enjoy the city in San Francisco. Kind of just really not become like the sometimes like the traditional immigrants where they have their own Chinatown or Koreatown or Persian town. Just get out of it and be part of the big broader society. This is one of the bad tendencies we have. We go to the same parties with the same people, with the same jokes, with the same food, and the same dances at the end of the night. So get out of that rhythm and just actually be part of the broader community you're in. And then this partnership is really more. I want to give credit to my ex-wife Bita, who was just a strong woman in my life. And when I was in deep debt and had gone through a couple of startups where I was not doing so well with my career, she was a salesperson for MCI, back then a communications company, and she was selling lines of telephone. And she would bring home these bonus checks that were more than my entire salary for the year. And actually, it convinced me that I'm in the wrong job. I was doing product. I was like, here I am working on product strategy, and it sounds great, but I'm making $40,000 a year, and she brought a $40,000 bonus check. So So, by the way, that honestly, that was one of the big influences on me moving to the revenue side. So I would say, those things, really that community, loving what you do, exposing yourself beyond that community, and then a strong partner in life. Just starting your life, having children, having, a marriage, and just getting into that rhythm just is part of life, and you learn from it, you grow with it, you take risks for it because you want a better life for your kids, and I would say all those things is an important consideration. I think we might have to do a second session here with all the great questions.
Thank you. What are your thoughts about some of the folks within a certain age still in Silicon Valley looking for career? And, as you know, once you get over 50 or 55, but you're not quite at your retirement age, your salary expectation is higher, experience is higher. Meantime, you're slowing down, companies are hiring younger folks, and there are a group of people who are facing a challenge to move between the company, get new jobs that are at the same level as they're trained for. So what can those guys do to, make the next move on their career?
Yeah. I think that's really tough. You're right. I mean, this is a challenge that companies have, and I think employees have, if you haven't taken some of the, not you specifically, I'm just like in generally, but if people haven't taken those risks early on in their career and kind of made themselves uncomfortable, then they do end up in these positions where they become either dated or less relevant of the times, and that's a dangerous position to be in. And the only recommendation I have is and I know these are hard, this is not easier said than done, but is just trying to retool yourself, trying to really find, even if you have to take a step back sometimes and go into a role but it's in the right company, it's a different environment that actually has more chance of success. I think it's better than kind of staying stagnant in an industry. I have my own couple of really close friends of mine that chose lifestyle over career. They chose lifestyle, and without embarrassing them now by giving more data points out, is just like they just didn't make those harsh moments. I sometimes thought I'm going to die with the pressures of some of these startups I was under, but I think those things made me stronger and better over time. So I would just say it's really assessing your strengths, assessing the network that you have, and using it all to then make the next move so that you put yourself in the flow of what's happening now. It's really the best advice I have. So forgetting the title or forgetting necessarily even the income that maybe you were expecting, but taking that next risk that puts you in a stronger flow. Maybe do a couple of more questions, and then, because I'm happy to come back. Yeah. Let's have another question from a lady in the middle here. As you can see, I'm very biased toward having the right diversity. I have 2 daughters.
Oh, hi. If you're looking to hire someone, what's the most important quality that you're looking in that person?
Yeah, I think honestly, the most important thing I look for is, does this person have the ability to grow and to really kind of challenge not only themselves, but the company and their manager and so forth. So I look at the capability of this person to really not necessarily do today's job, because everything is moving so fast. And I'll share the Sheryl Sandberg story, because this is actually relates to your question also about Sheryl. So Sheryl Sandberg, who's the CEO of Facebook now, and she's a world figure now, she was brought into Google by Eric Schmidt, our CEO, to get the company ready for going public. She came from the government. She was in the Treasury Department, just a superstar, education and talent. And very quickly she got frustrated because we weren't ready to go public. It was years away, and she just kind of really started thrashing around, she didn't have a job, and she wasn't sure what she's going to do, and I was running the business, and I was about to do this mega partnership with AOL, where all of the most advanced advertisers online were going to come to Google, and I used to say, I need a manual. I need because imagine those days where these advertisers will come and advertise on Google, and what if there are, porn sites? What if there are pharmaceutical sites that you have to reject? What if there are, the proper, basically these policies around advertising, policies around how do you accept these advertisers, optimize them, make them better, and so forth. So it's a kind of a very important job, but it's a tedious job. It's like a job of hiring a lot of smart people who can, well, traditionally it's a job of like doing maybe a call center where you outsource this and have somebody else do this for you based on a manual you give them and a training you give them. Well, Cheryl was running around and came to my office, and I knew she's a superstar and she doesn't have a job. And she said, Omid, can you help me? And I said, well, the only senior job I have is this role, but to me, I need a tractor and you're like a Porsche. and she said, Omid, I can be a Porsche tractor for you. So I said, are you sure you want this job and are you going to do it? And then she told me, and by the way, it's really interesting because she's on the board of Disney today. So Omid, you may not notice about me, but my ideal job is to figure out how to make the lines at Disneyland shorter. You see, I love operations. I like to figure out the efficiency of lines and all of this. And I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I need. So I gave her that role, and the rest is history. I mean, she's just like, instead of doing a call center, she hired the most smart group of people with language skills, with fantastic education, that to this day is one of the assets of Google, this large organization that manages our advertisers and operations. Anyway, my point there is, when I looked at Cheryl, she didn't have any experience in that job. She didn't have any experience, doing ad operations. I just bet on this smart woman that can do anything, and is she willing to do this job? So I look for that. I look for, and especially if you are trying to apply for a job, look to demonstrate to someone that you're not about today's job. You're smart and you can figure this out, but you're a lot more than that. And you can your career and the ways you're going to expand the opportunities within the company is broader than the job at hand today.
One last question.
Yeah. Let's go. You pick.
Alex Sadagat, thank you for coming here, Omid. I have a broad question for you. Do you think that too much talent is concentrated on the internet today? Because what really bothers me that we all have these wonderful computers in our pockets, but we're still driving on bridges and highways that are falling apart. So what's your take on that? Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Look, I think this. It's true that there's this amazing concentration of talent in our industry. But on the other hand, I feel like what's great about it is that this technology field is now touching every industry, right? From medicine to genetics to transportation now, and hotel businesses, everything is getting touched by it. On a related comment, though, I do hope that, especially when people have the right career, and I saw this happen at Google a lot, is this talent actually started going to different industries, trying to even go into the government and take positions in the US government to help. So I do think it's great that we have this talent. I do hope that not only do we intelligently help these other industries, but also over time be willing to help the other parts of our country and our industry. Because I completely agree with you, and this is probably the one thing I agree with President Trump these days, is this country's infrastructure is just like embarrassing compared to the rest of the world. And so the kinds of innovations that we can do and the kinds of contributions we can make to that is pretty significant, and it's a great opportunity, I feel. So thank you so much. I love spending time with you and connecting with you, and hope to do that in the future again. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.